in AZ, Ebonyi State, set ablaze.
Abuja to Kaduna train to commence operations when intending passengers are familiar with new ticket purchasing measure.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the guidelines on political campaigns and election financing.
Last week, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, released guidelines for the conduct of political campaigns, rallies, processions, as well as finances and election expenses of parties, candidates, and aspirants.
Now, the statement by the electoral umpire deals with political rallies and campaigns, and it's a 12-point guideline focusing on procedures, clash of dates, venues, and time of campaigns.
Now, the political parties are expected to submit soft and hard copies through a designated portal notifying INEC on the schedule of their campaigns, indicating date, time, venue, agenda, and list of members of the organizing committee and police approval within 10 days to the commencement of their campaigns.
Well, the guidelines also stipulate that the campaigns shall be based on the Constitution and manifestos of the respective parties and shall comply with the provisions of all regulatory bodies in the electoral process.
And on political party financing, a political party cannot receive more than 50 million naira and shall not accept any monetary or other contribution which is more than 50 million naira, except it identifies and discloses the source of the contribution to the commission.
Political parties must also inform INEC of the transfer of any funds or other assets sent to them from outside the country, and this they should do within 21 days of receipt. Now, the guidelines also say that every political party that is participating in an election shall submit through the portal designated by the Commission an audited report of its election expenses, and they should be within 6 months after an election.
Now, this reporting period shall commence 360 days to and including the election day. While these issues inform our focus on the guidelines released by INEC on political campaigns and election financing. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Jumai Yusuf.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Jumai to also welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. As we have indicated, we're dealing with campaign guidelines, even though campaigns have been in full swing now for well over 2 months. And of course, the issues around election financing, always a tough one to deal with in our climb. In the course of the program, we'll have our complementary segments, and these include newspaper review and business. For now, highlights of the morning news with Ann Jibuno. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jumai. Good morning, Nigeria. Here's the news. President Muhammadu Buhari Sunday evening played host to his counterparts from Guinea-Bissau, Umaru Sissoco Embalo. President Embalo, who is the current chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, is in Abuja on a 2-day official visit. The two leaders, who had a private dinner, are expected to attend the opening ceremony of the current session of ECOWAS Parliament on Monday. That's today. President Embalo maintained close relations with the Nigerian leader since coming to power in January 2020. At various times, he attributed his success at the polls and in governance to the enormous support and assistance by President Buhari. And as a mark of honor and appreciation, a major road network in Bissau, the nation's capital city, was last year named after the Nigerian leader. And the government of Nigeria has condemned in its entirety the attempted coup d'etat reported in the early hours of 25th November 2022 in Sao Tome and Principe. This is just as the government says it stands in solidarity with the democratically elected government of the country. A statement by the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs indicates that the federal government has urged the government or the good people of Sao Tome and Principe to lend necessary support to the newly elected government of Prime Minister Patrice Trovoada in its efforts to address the challenges bedeviling the country and leverage on the gains of democracy for the good of its populace. The statement further reaffirmed that the Nigerian government will continue to support the African Union's position upheld by the various regional communities as economic communities that coup d'etats in Africa will not be condoned. After about 8 months of suspension of operations of the Abuja to Kaduna standard train services, the Minister of Transportation, Muazu Jaji Sambo, says movement will not commence until intending passengers are familiar with the new measures introduced in purchasing tickets. The minister made this known while on an assessment tour of the train from Idu station in Abuja to Rigasa in Kaduna.
I want to be cocksure that the guarantee I'm giving Nigerians to use this train is really guaranteed. Secondly, I also want to make sure that the Nigerian public are sufficiently enlightened about the new procedure for buying tickets. You don't buy a ticket unless you have a valid phone number and you have an NIN.
Now, the newly sworn-in governor of Osun State, Senator Ademola Adeleke, has pledged to demonstrate a high sense of transparency, justice and innovation in tackling the myriads of challenges confronting the state as he reverses some major decisions taken without due process by the immediate past administration of Boyega Oyetola. The inauguration had in attendance the national leaders of the PDP across the country, including the party's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and his running mate Ifeanyi Okowa.
Mass employment and appointments were carried out without budgetary provisions for salary payments for the new employees, even when the state was struggling to pay salaries and deliver other services. Various hurried, criminally backdated contracts were awarded, and again, without budgetary provisions. It is therefore my desire to ask for your patience and understanding to give my administration a few weeks to review and sort out all actions and malicious confusions.
Now, the new Nigeria People's Party street-to-street campaign appears to be yielding results, with more residents of the FCT pledging their support for the party. The FCT Working Committee and senatorial candidate of the party, Mubarak Tijani, who led the campaign, expressed optimism that the party's presidential blueprint will address all the key challenges the nation is currently facing.
A new Nigeria where all our youth would be empowered. As a youth that I am, I stand before you here, my fellow youths. Stand up, get your PVCs, and let's get this mandate. We will win our election. No doubt we will win our election.
In the meantime, INEC's office in the local government area of Ebonyi State has been set ablaze by yet-to-be-identified armed persons. Although no casualties resulted from the attack, the main building and all movable and immovable items inside it were destroyed. These include 340 ballot boxes, 130 voting cubicles, 14 electric power generators, large water storage tanks, office furniture, and yet to be identified number of permanent voter cards. A statement by INEC's National Commissioner for Information, Festus Okoye, indicates that the attention of the Nigeria Police Force and other security agencies has been drawn to the incident and investigations have commenced. Meanwhile, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, has ordered commissioners of police in charge of state police commands to activate the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security with a view to engaging stakeholders in evolving strategies to mitigate threats during the 2023 general elections within their jurisdictions. The IGP in a statement notes that the political violence, hate speech, political intolerance, misinformation and political extremism are potential threats to democracy. Therefore, all state police commissioners are to work in synergy with other members of the committee to reduce occurrence and threats of violence to its bearers with prosecution of violators of electoral laws. Similarly, the IGP enjoins commissioners of police in charge of state commands to ensure strategic deployment of officers and assets and supervise officers from other security agencies scheduled for election duty to ensure safety of INEC personnel and materials before, during, and after the general elections. Well, that's the news for now. The program continues with Jumai and Kingsley after the break.
All I do is win. I wake up, I win. I close my eyes, and I win. Keep up on me, come on, let's independent women, come on, now let's get it. I'ma keep running till the world stops.
Wow, you look great. Did you just come from the salon? Darling Superstar, great that stays salon fresh no matter what.
This blessing be yours, forever to keep a calm and peaceful sleep.
Removes mosquitoes so you can sleep a calm and peaceful sleep. Good night, Electric.
I agree.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, DCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
What we face mostly now are flashes of cowardly attacks from the rump of groups that have been routed in one location or the other, moving to another to give the false impression that they are still strong. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate them altogether and restore total and lasting peace over every inch of the Nigerian soil. Sounding tall, but take it home. We are determined to ensure that every inch of the Nigerian soil is safe. That determination is there. The order has been given. But we shall continue to protect the lives and property of Nigerians and foreigners in our midst. We shall continue to work for the peace of the nation and deter elements that constitute threats to the people. We shall bear the full powers of the government to secure every inch of our land. We shall not rest until peace is fully restored to Nigeria.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You're welcome back. Key players have enjoined Nigeria to sustain its trade expansion drive through promotion of non-oil export to allow it to sustain its economic recovery plans. Let's join Kunle Adeye for details.
The non-oil export sector has been contributing significantly to the GDP growth based on the figures being released by the National Bureau of Statistics. The country's Export for Survival campaign, according to active players in the non-oil export sector, will continue to stimulate the economy. Those who are active in this sector have enjoined Nigeria's export promoter to target MSMEs to achieve global market access.
As part of our Export for Survival campaign, the Council is further undertaking full sponsorship of HACCP and FDA for 200 MSMEs companies. This is to commence immediately.
It's going to expose my market to the outside world. Because with this certificate now, I can send my product outside Nigeria. Those that have not been buying from me, they are willing to buy because this certificate has exposed me.
But above all, it means job creation for people. It means that in order for us to export our products, we need to engage more hands. We need to bring in more people to be able to move our products from where we are right now.
To them, Nigeria will continue to exert its dominance as Africa's largest economy. With Business News, I'm Kunle Adeye.
That was the news package. Coming up next for us now is a newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukudi, is in the studio. Good morning. I hope you had a splendid weekend.
Good morning, Jume. I think I enjoyed the weekend. What with the football matches?
Exactly. You had time to watch.
I did.
Good for you.
All right. Very quickly, we'll take a look at some of the headlines on the front pages of the three papers that we have this morning. Maybe, Juma, you kick off with
the Sun, the Daily Sun newspaper. I'll start with this. Quite a busy front page this morning, and just at the side piece of the Daily Sun, fuel scarcity persists as filling stations ration product. Find details on page 25. Chief Justice of Nigeria swears in 62 lawyers today as SAN. Details on page 3. Power show at National Assembly. 2 clerks emerge as outgoing one refuses to vacate office. You find the details on page 6. And just by the side piece of the picture story, don't wait till 40, 50 before taking up leadership. Onayaka Ona Nweke Jr. charge youths. Details on page 26. Governor Adeleke assumes office, pledges to correct injustice in Oshun. Council's 11th hour appointment by outgone governor names SSG, COS, CPS. Details on page 27. Oil drilling, mistakes of Niger Delta won't repeat in North, says Gombe governor. Details on page 6. Again, Women to occupy National Assembly to force lawmakers to represent rejected gender bills. Details on page 28. How I sustained economy without borrowing in 4 years. That's coming from Oyotola. Details on page 27. The outgone Osun State Governor. Abuja Kaduna train services to resume in 7 days. Details on page 6. 2023 replaced Tinubu as presidential candidate, Atiku tells APC. Details on page 28. IGP orders CPS, commissioners of police, to strategize, protect INEC offices' orders. And just below the picture story, heaps of decayed naira found in refuse dump. Currency outside banks rose from 1.67 billion to 2.84 trillion in October. Details on page 25. And at the bottom plate of the Daily Sun, troops kill 4 bandits in Kaduna. Details on page 4. Yes.
All right. We also take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. We'll take an earpiece there beside the nameplate. Above, of course, the nameplate is Punch winning newspaper of the year and 8 other awards at the NMMA, that is Nigerian Media Awards for 2022. POS fraud, how slack guidelines and banks' apathy cost Nigerians huge losses. That's the story. It's a feature on pages 24 and 25. Fuel scarcity. Now, marketers are advocating that NNPC petrol price without subsidy is 400 naira per litre. Oil firms struggling with subsidies. Government cannot be Father Christmas. Ipman, NNPC and MPDRA keep mum. Over 30,000 filling stations face shortage. Adeleke reverses Oyetola's appointments, says action malicious. And you can see the photographs there from Oshobo, where the swearing in of the new governor took place yesterday. Election results. Nationwide e-transmission possible, say telcos. Saudi-bound trafficker conceals cocaine in sandals. Yuletide, NCDC warns of possible COVID-19 infection rise. That's on page 40. And very quickly, from the leadership newspaper, a couple of headlines. 2023 polls. Concern as INEC tracks hundreds of PVCs to individuals. 2 persons found with 468 voter cards in Sokoto and Kano. And we are prosecuting them, says electoral body, promises seamless collection of PVCs. Peter Obi supports oil exploration in Northeast. Qatar 2022, Morocco stunned Belgium as Croatia sent Canada back home. Abuja Kaduna train service won't resume today, according to the minister. Chukwudi.
Quite a deluge there, if I may use that word. But let us quickly look at some stories that stand out for me. 2023 concerns as INEC tracks hundreds of PVCs to individuals. And actually, Kingsley mentioned a figure there, 468 voter cards discovered with 2 persons in Sokoto, Kano. What were they doing with them? What
How did they
was
get
their
it?
intention?
How did they get it?
How did they get them? Could they have successfully used this on the day of election? What kind of relief are we going to get from the application of beavers to the process of accrediting voters and all that? We are told that those courts are being prosecuted, which I think encourages us. That means that we are not taking it, lying down. I think this is something we should commend on the part of INEC. But it beats me honor with all the talk about beavers coming in to thwart whatever evil intentions anyone would have against, smooth polls, fair polls, Why would people still engage in these? How did they get the PVCs? But as I said, the better option for us now, maybe the only option, is for us to hope that INEC, with whatever units it's deploying to track these PVCs, would continue to succeed in thwarting the efforts of these people. Adeleke takes over as Osun State Governor, freezes the state's accounts across banks, reverses two things now. Oyetola's, that's Adegboyega, Oyetola, the former governor. He reverses some of his appointments and also reverses the name of the state back to Osun State. I wonder why it ever became State of Osun. I don't know what nomenclatural adventure somebody was engaged in there. Then lastly for me here, before our talking points, start, the Sultan, His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto is asking Mietiala to engage a lot of efforts to make sure, to help us ensure that security across the country, as they are getting better, as it is getting better and better at the moment, becomes something that we can uphold towards, very successful polls. The Sultan is saying that to him, when you hear people talking about dividing up the country, it's a signal that things are not really being handled well. Otherwise, the regular human being would want to exist with his fellow man. How do they say it in English? The more, the merrier. And when we converge, we begin to create more solid points about a better livelihood for everyone.
Yeah, and I over the weekend, the fuel scarcity reared its ugly head again. There was fuel all over the place, and suddenly the petrol stations are shutting down, and stakeholders are saying more drastic measures should be taken to ensure that Nigerians don't suffer between this period. The Yuletide is here already. It's going to be quite difficult.
I think what peeved Kingsley and I,
yes,
and me, that's objective form, is that the ugly head of that snake started being reared more than, far before the weekend.
Yes.
The question Kingsley and I asked that day is, what really is the reason for the fuel scarcity? Lokoja is no longer in deluge. It is no longer submerged. 2 years ago, people said the flood in Lokoja was so much that crocodiles were coming out on the streets. Nigerians are very good at spinning stories when these things happen. But the point is, the tankers are moving freely now. Yes, the roads can improve. I drove on that road about 3 weeks ago. I'm going to tell you that 9-hour journey to Isiluku was not funny. The road is not very good. But the waters from the river, overflowing river, the rains and all that, those have receded. So we cannot say that tankers can move anymore. What then is responsible for the creeping fuel?
Let me say this quickly before we run out of time.
Yes.
The marketers have on their own been waging a subtle campaign for the, if you may, official increase in the pump price of petrol.
Yes.
You see the stories from time to time. Now, NNPC is, according to one of the writers to this headline from the Punch newspaper, as well as the authority, the NNPC as well as the authority is keeping mum on the claim that, without subsidy, the marketers are not the ones paying the subsidy. So that's not their business. Yes. The business is that of the government, and the government has already budgeted for it to say we'll pay subsidy, and the subsidy to be paid will be up to June next year. And the conditions given for terminating subsidy with effect from next year will be that the refineries that are currently undergoing rehabilitation some of them would have come on stream. 2 in Port Harcourt, 1 in Warri, and the other one in Kaduna. What we haven't heard recently is the state of activities at the various refineries undergoing rehabilitation. What is the percentage of work completed? Well, we are told that we're going to have some good news by the end of this year. That's just about a month or so away. Now, if it is next quarter, if it's first quarter of next year, what information do we have? I think those are more critical issues rather than this scaremongering of we pay 500 there's war in Ukraine, XYZ, all kinds of things. NNPC have your own depots and so on and so forth. So I think that these are stories that they just, they should sort themselves out. But I want to quickly go to the issue around the swearing in of Adeleke, who is the 6th executive governor Osun State. It's becoming a family thing. Of course, his sibling, Isiaka Adeleke was a governor of that state. He also became a senator. Unfortunately, he passed away while he was seeking to become governor again of that state. Now, he took his brother's sibling seat in the Senate and also now contested the election and has won this time around. There's something that probably analysts will be in a better position to discuss at the opportune time. What happened in 2018 election? Who actually won that election? As some persons will say, and this time around the matter is still sub judice, so they are proceeding with that. As we indicated, some of those last-minute appointments that the former governor made, Governor Yetola, 30 permanent secretaries. As we said, the new governor says, "Look, I'm reversing all of those appointments, well within his powers to do." There's no question about it. Well, executive order has also been issued. What it's something of surplusage is the governor saying that, look, he's reverting to Osun State rather than state of Osun. It was Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola as governor of Osun State 2010 to 2018 who purported to have rechristened Osun State as State of Osun and also changed the slogan to Land of Virtue. Now it's a land of or state of living spring. That's what Adeleke is reverting to. As I said, it is surplusage because there was a judicial decision on this matter. Some people went to court to say, look, there is nothing known as state of Osun to our laws. And the court held that what is provided for in the constitution, as you will find in the schedule, is Osun State and not state of Osun. So saying that you are reverting to it, as I said, it amounts to surplusage. But it's sufficient to say that, look, Osun State is back to its name. It's been so since that judicial authority. And Adeleke, of course, is in charge. Some mischievously refer to him as a dancing senator, as a dancing governor. That may very well be so, but he's keeping fit.
He's keeping fit.
Unless
and he's very agile, actually.
Unless
those dance steps, especially the twists.
Let's take this. Dancing is an art.
It is.
It is not everybody that can dance and be appreciated.
Kingsley, laughter improves the environment.
Of course.
That's right.
You see the problem.
And dance is healthy. Exactly. I still put on music in my house and I dance in my house just to exercise.
The more misery we bear on our faces on the streets,
yes,
the more help will come from those who are looking. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't.
Brighten up the environment.
Exactly.
Give it a smile.
Especially on a beautiful Monday morning like this.
The way I'm laughing at Jumai now.
Well, we also know that the World Cup is on. It's been a World Cup
of surprises.
Absolutely so. But it is not so much the fact that Morocco defeated Belgium yesterday 2-0, and Croatia that suffered. Sorry, not Croatia. Costa Rica. Costa Rica that was defeated 7-0 by Spain. By Spain, turned around to beat Japan. And Japan had earlier defeated Germany. So it's a World Cup of surprises. Yesterday, of course, the Germans came back and, of course, showed the stuff that they are made of to head Spain to a 1-1 draw. So it remains open. Canada, of course, is going home. England and the United States played a drab draw. But the point to make is, look, the World Cup is a festival.
It is.
And we should ask ourselves why we are missing when this big festival is taking place. It is not sufficient that we are watching Ghana, we are watching Cameroon, we are watching Senegal has come back from its first loss, has won the second match, of course. So why are we missing and what needs to be done? We've said on Good Morning Nigeria, we had conversations and topics around, look, what do we do to improve our game? And some of the finest players and managers of the sport have been our guests on Good Morning Nigeria. Yes. I'm sure if you were to call Segun Odegbami today, Segun Odegbami would repeat what he has said over and over again. What, we can't have indigenous coaches? We can't, and then the coaches
all
that they hire from time to time, they are posting all kinds of draws and losses, and we are justifying it. Why are we missing where this big game is taking place? In the meantime, if it is to go and recommission, regrassing of a national stadium. Everybody, cameras and everybody will be regrassing pitch. Play on the pitch and let's see you on the world stage. That's our challenge.
I like that. Kingsley,
I think we need to go back to the Westerhoff strategy of starting from the grassroots and bringing up
We have
players.
always started from
awesome
grassroots.
players, yes.
We retune and refine, we start over. Still, the story does not quite change. So let me not dampen my spirit this morning. I hate the word lament in news writing, but let's not lament why Nigeria is not there.
Yeah.
Okay? Let me
but
perhaps...
it is still painful.
It is painful.
No,
If
you would, okay, what synonym?
It is very painful.
Chukudi, what synonym would you rather use if it's not lamentation?
Lamenting.
Oh, well, yeah.
We should be there. We should be there.
You're told to avoid words that are going to make the listener sad. But let me quickly say that La Pulga Atomica, Messi, has returned. That man, he excites me a lot. Remember, was it Mexico 86? When I remember a BBC commentator. He laid a lot of chances for his teammates. They wouldn't convert any, so he went solo. Now it's England 1, Maradona 2. That is how Messi excites me. Kingsley, I don't know why you're talking Nigeria. Do you have any love for Messi at all? Because that will make a pair of us.
No, well,
I'm a more I
will be silent on that. The Mexico 86 tournament you're referring to.
Yes.
Let's not forget that there was also the hand of God.
Yes.
The hand of God. That cannot be erased from soccer history. And it was a foul committed by Maradona, who scored with a hand.
Who called it the hand of God?
Claimed that it was a hand of God. Yes, I watched Messi. Yes, I watched Messi. You know, he scored the first goal before, of course, the second goal came.
Incredible goal.
It was a brilliant goal. 2-0 against.
Sea of black.
2-0 against Mexico. Look, there are brilliant players. Part of what I'm saying, I hope we are going to have a conversation around this. When you look at the big clubs around the world, you can count almost 10 or 11 or 12 of their players for different national teams.
That's true.
Different national teams. I mean, you start off, let's say the biggest club in the world, the richest and the most achieving club in the world, Real Madrid.
Yes.
From their goalkeeper to defenders to midfielders to attackers. They are there in their different national teams.
Yeah.
Karim Benzema got injured and the coach says, look, I'm not going to replace him. He had a thigh injury. Everybody knows he's the latest Ballon d'Or winner. Luka Modric, of course, is captain of Croatia. The defender, Militao is there for Brazil as a defender. Rudiger was there yesterday for Germany. And then Carvajal was also there for Spain. So these are the kind of boys, that these are the things that we should be asking. When it's not, we should lament. How many World Cups have we been to since 1994? We're not there in 2006.
No, we're not.
It's quite damp.
No, we have never gone past the second round. So this should be an item. I know we will always say that. Oh, we will learn our lessons. Let's come back. Let's come back and then re-strategize. To get your national coach, you hire national coaches, indigenous coaches. You will not pay them on time. You will not, and then you'll be giving instructions to them on what to do. Then you go and hire foreigners. You go and hire foreigners.
That's what I don't like. There's always a story. Okay, look at the friendly between us and Portugal. Did you see the lackluster, lackadaisical attitude of our players there? I didn't like it at all. Yes, it was a friendly, but we needed to make a point that we should have been at that World Cup.
Friendly is the build-up to. Well, let's not spoil our mood this morning.
No, we will spoil the month. We will spoil the month.
I don't want to spoil my Monday. I don't want to spoil my Monday.
No, because the headlines would so dictate. There is a story. We don't have it on the front pages of the papers today. I know there's a story you read also from the Daily Sun about decayed Naira notes being found at where people. There are cash graves that have been exhumed now.
Yes.
All kinds of. When preachers ask you to pray that cankerworm should not set upon what you have worked for, what you have earned. This is part of it. They didn't work for this money.
No,
that is why Kanka won't be going after them. That's why the money is
and
decaying.
they didn't allow anybody to enjoy it. How can you keep so much money?
There are heaps of decayed naira notes.
That means everywhere. They were never checked.
You will see there were some videos I went through. Some of them were inside the cement bags. If you work hard for your money, you will not go and keep your money inside cement bags. Some will bury it in the sitting room. So when the man is talking to you in the sitting room, or the woman is talking to you in the sitting room, you will just cross it. If the camera can show me now, you will just cross the leg and it will visit us. You will just be showing that. No problem. And then in his mind, he will be saying,
I'm sitting on money.
No, in the mind, they will be saying, if they know what I'm worth, what you are worth is what has decayed now.
Yes.
You didn't slave for it. You didn't labor for it.
A sad moment for our country. And on that note, we round up the paper review this morning. Thank you so much, Chukwudi.
I pray it gets better.
I pray it gets better.
Thank you, lady and
But if you know what I'm worth now,
don't say that. Don't come and kidnap me.
No.
We'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation will continue.
You clean your teeth every morning, but that fresh breath feeling just doesn't last. The answer? Easy. You keep your teeth strong and healthy and give your mouth long-lasting fresh breath with new Oral-B 2-in-1 toothpaste. It helps strengthen your teeth and gives you long-lasting fresh breath.
So fresh, feel fresh, and feel fresh.
Stay strong, stay fresh. New Oral-B toothpaste for strong teeth and long-lasting fresh breath.
The Debt Management Office has been impacting infrastructure across Nigeria through the sovereign sukuk. Here is another opportunity to invest in your country as the federal government through the Debt Management Office offers for subscription 100 billion naira 10-year Ijara sukuk due December 2032 at the rate of 15.64% per annum. Already, sections of 71 roads and 4 bridges covering a total of 2,820.06 kilometers across Nigeria have been constructed or rehabilitated using proceeds from previous sukuk offerings in 2017, 2018, 2020, and 2021. To be a part of this opportunity, check newspapers for details. Contact your bank or stockbroker. You can also visit the DMO website at www.dmo.gov.ng to download and complete the application form. This offer closes November 29, 2022. Hurry and don't be left behind. Your investment is a catalyst for growth and development.
Everywhere you go, from banks to hospitals to public offices, mass transit stations, airports, and even telecommunication centers, senior citizens are treated as nuisances. They are not. They are senior members of our society, and they deserve the utmost respect. We shouldn't be having our aged fathers and mothers standing in long queues to withdraw their monies at banks. Our retired senior citizens shouldn't be caught standing in buses for lack of seats or chasing after one just to get to their destination. Senior citizens shouldn't have to sit long hours in hospital corridors with no geriatric specialist to attend to them. Our senior citizens deserve better treatment from all of us. They deserve to be listened to. They are deserving of seat reservations on public buses and priority attendance in public spaces. As young people, we are quick to say, no one owes you. This is not true. We owe the elderly members of our society a helping hand, our services, and respect. Age-friendly societies have more senior citizens enjoying good health, living safely, and engaging in meaningful community work than those who do not. Dignifying age-friendly services for senior citizens.
Crude oil theft, illegal refining of petroleum products, vandalism of pipelines, sea piracy, kidnapping for ransom, militancy, and environmental degradation are amongst the potent threats in the south-south zone of Nigeria. Accordingly, Operation Delta Safe is being conducted in the south-south and parts of the southeast geographical zone to protect the nation's oil and gas industries. which is the mainstay of Nigeria's economy.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the election, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, before we begin our conversation, which is on the guidelines released by INEC with respect to political campaigns and election campaign financing, we would like to take this background down, compiled by our correspondent, Oyeyemi Ajayi.
As the Nigeria's political referee, which is the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, looks towards February 2023, the set date for the country's general elections, the political players are testing their mights through campaigns and reeling out their manifestos. As a way to check the political actors, INEC released its guidelines for the conduct of political rallies, processions, and campaigns, as well as finances and election expenses of political parties, candidates, and aspirants. The 12 points guideline on conduct of political rallies and campaigns deals with issues of procedures, clash of dates, venue, and time of campaigns. The 9 points guideline on finances and election expenses of political parties, which reminds stakeholders on the procedures and limits of individuals and group donations, as well as submission of revenues and expenditures after the election. Aside these, the political parties are to submit required reports to the Commission in accordance with the provisions of Section 90, subsection 4 of the Electoral Act 2022 and the applicable sanctions for failure to comply. How much change will this bring towards having a new vista in the electoral process? Will the political parties comply with these guidelines, and how much willpower is INEC ready to wield to enforce compliance? These are some questions our guests, already seated, will be answering shortly.
And to discuss the guidelines on political campaigns and election financing, let me first introduce in our studio here Cynthia Mbamalu. She's the Director of Program Yaga Africa. Good to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good morning and good morning Nigeria.
Thank you. We also have joining us in the studio Yabagi Yusuf Sani. He's the IPAC National Chairman. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dumai.
And we're still expecting somebody, Chukwe Jukwe is the legal practitioner. He'll be joining us in the course of the program. Yes, Lee.
All right. Thank you, Chubai. For the two guests who are in the studios right now, our regulars on Good Morning Nigeria, Engineer Yabagi Yusuf Sani, Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, is right here with us in the studio, and also, of course, a presidential candidate in the February elections for 2023. Engineer Yabagi, let's begin with you. INEC has issued the guidelines on political campaigns and election financing. Tell us what your thoughts are, and if you may, on behalf of IPAC, what the thinking is about the timing of the publication of the guidelines.
Well, it's coming rather late, but it's not. It's better than never at all. But be that as may, I think most of us are familiar with what INEC is talking about. That is when you look at the ground norm itself and the Electoral Act 2022. It's those two issues, campaigns and campaign financing, have been the biggest challenge that we have had in the elections in the past. And I think this is an attempt to ensure that those seemingly intractable challenges, are at least put in perspective. Legal framework are brought out now in a much more pronounced and, if you like, lucid manner, that is, people can read and understand the punishments. You can understand the limits as they are, in the financing, and you can also understand where you should campaign and where you shouldn't campaign. But the explanation, that is the administration of the act itself, which is what the guidelines is all about, as brought out by INEC, I think it's okay. But what now you ask is, didn't we have laws that really could be applied, even before this electoral law? So I think end of the day, it is the people, that is ourselves, the political parties, and also the electorates, that really should have the mindset of having credible, reliable, free, and if you like, all-inclusive elections in this country. If we want to have, such an election, it's not the amount of laws that really, make elections to become credible, because you may have the laws as we've had them, and you can see the impunity with which they are abused. So my take on the guidelines is that, yes, INEC is always up to the task, in terms of delivering on the mandate given to them. That is administering the electoral, act, and also the constitution itself, the provision, the act that established INEC itself, and the electoral laws guiding the elections. The other agencies of government, are really the issues here. You talk about the police, INEC cannot prosecute, they can arrest, anybody. It is the police, that can make these laws to become what they should be, meaning that it should be something that should guide, and people should be compelled, to follow them. Because
Engineer Yabagi, I'm sorry to interject at this point. We will come to enforcement of the guidelines as subsidiary legislation subsequently. I would like to hear from Cynthia Mbamalo with respect to the timing. I asked that question deliberately because the formal flag off of campaigns was on the 28th of September. And today, of course, is the 28th, which is, we're having this conversation today. INEC issued the guidelines last week. What are your thoughts on the timing of the release of the guidelines to campaigning and then campaign finance?
Actually, it's coming rather late, but they say better late than never. And why I say that, because if you look at the Electoral Act, the definition on election expenses, it begins to count once notice of elections has been issued. So expenses commence once notice of election was issued 28th of February, if we remember, telling us the elections will be held next year, February. And then there was the party primaries, meaning that this guideline, there's a guideline on campaigns, there's a guideline on finances, ought to come earlier, just so that parties, yes, we have an electoral act, but it provides detailed framework on how parties would conduct themselves as they begin spending in the party primary process and post the primaries and commencement of campaigns. And that is because one of the innovation of the legal framework is the fact that there was a lot of outcry by citizens that we don't know what parties are spending. There's no accountability on elections expenses. And we're hoping that this election would give us an opportunity to better track how much parties actually spend, how much candidates actually spend in the process. So while it's out now, we're happy we finally have the guideline, but if we think about timing, I would have expected it came out earlier, just so that parties wouldn't come and say, oh, the guidelines came out late and we didn't know the details. I'm not saying that because parties can't also claim they don't know what is in the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act provides framework for regulating election expenses and what needs to be done. But if you look at the guidelines, it provides better details. For instance, even things around timelines on when you submit your reports on how much individuals contributed to you, or even how much your party spent. There's a better clarity with the guidelines. So ordinarily, I would expect this to come out earlier. However, you said this is 28th of November. These guidelines came out, I think, about almost a week now, in November. Campaign started in September, because we have campaigns 150 days to the elections. Yeah, you know. So, however, now is also a reminder, perhaps it's also a reminder to political parties that as you're spending, as you're conducting your campaigns, that there are clear requirements by the law that you must abide by. And these requirements are further expanded in the guidelines, and we're hoping that parties would take this seriously. I'm glad we have IPAC represented here and comply to that, because honestly, citizens want to follow through how much people spend, especially because we also want to ensure that parties that are ruling parties in respective states, be it at the national or at the state level, that state funds are not used for campaigns or for party activities, because we also need to ensure that there's clarity between personal party funds and state funds being used for electoral campaigns in this season of elections.
But also, stakeholders are also saying that are the political parties really in tune with the provision of the Electoral Law 2022 in order to familiarize themselves with the guidelines and their obligations and the penalties in case you do not comply? Some say it's just on paper.
Well, sadly that's what it's been so far, because I mean, we've always had limits on election expenses, even before the new act. We had it in the previous Electoral Act, but we know that parties and candidates were breaching these laws without any sense of responsibility. So there is a high level of impunity when it comes to how parties engage. However, with the new law, the expenses were increased. For the president, you can't spend beyond 5 billion naira, for instance, and it goes lower till about 30 million for state assemblies, those contested for state assemblies. So there is a limitation on how much can be spent, limitation on how much individuals can contribute. Individuals cannot contribute beyond 50 million naira to a candidate. Now, the law is clear. What we're hoping that parties would understand now is there's a reason we have a law. That the law provides a limitation on how much you should spend and how much you should receive from individuals, even from foreigners, because there's also limits on how foreign resources contributions come into the country,
and that's a dangerous dimension to
this. Yes. So these are important requirements by the law, and political parties ought to comply with this particular law, because you cannot be a party contesting a democratic system and yet you do not want to be guided by the rule of law. So we also need parties to show that they understand the importance of the law, that they understand that they are an institution within a democracy, and that they understand that their compliance is critical to our democratic development.
All right, Cynthia, thanks a lot. Sorry, I jumped in there while you were talking about the aspect relating to a permissible threshold for foreign contributions. It's an issue that we will examine. But let's look at the broad strokes. One relating to political campaigns, and then the other, of course, election financing, campaign financing. On political campaigns, I'm wondering, IPAC Chair, the guidelines stipulate some notices to be served on INEC and the security agencies, more particularly the police, for purposes of rallies. And the notice is that it should be 10 days. You have 18 political parties. And as we said, the campaigns have started. They've been on for the past 2 months. How realistic is this 10-day notice, considering that right now we have barely 90 days to the elections, and everyone is pressed for time, and so on and so forth? Is 10 days, is it too long a notice to give to the security agencies as well as INEC?
Well, I think it's really not the duration or the number of days that you are supposed to give that is the issue. Really, I think what INEC is trying to do is to a situation where you have 2 parties or more parties, going out for campaign on the same day, and there, that portends danger because you are going to have some conflict. People will start, abusing each other and what have you. So I think, and so long it does not say that if you do not comply, the elections will be cancelled or something will happen. I have not seen the punishment, the sanctions, yes, which affects your elections. But it's only an attempt to ensure that you have a decent and then, rancor-free, elections. But 10 days, well, maybe under the circumstance, given that the number of days are not much remaining, but the window is that the political parties can sit down together and work it out where there's conflict. That's what it says. So, and 10 days just a cap, not that you are going to be sanctioned in a manner that will affect the substance of the elections itself. So I think it's good, to have a rather peaceful, environment where elections will take place. So I think it's to me it's okay. But what bothers me really is the areas spelled out that you cannot campaign. The police station, they mentioned churches and mosques and other places like that. Why didn't they mention government houses? I still remember one of the parties launched their Women Wing campaign in the presidential villa, and I still see Mr. President using taxpayers' money to go to campaign. So how do we factor in those ones in the expenses that parties are not supposed to spend? So these are areas I think the law should have covered, or INEC should have taken, look at it in a more broader perspective, so that we have what we call a level playing, field, for everybody.
If the field is not level, no?
It's not level because you see, in fact, governors even go to the extent, of saying you cannot paste posters or billboards in government, so-called government, which is public, places. So, but here we are, people using our facilities, taxpayers' money,
Well, still on financing and the electoral law itself, it said that most of the political parties, or all, did not give their audited report 2019. And now there's a guideline that said you must.
Yeah,
is that possible? If they didn't give their audited report in 2019, we're in 2020, going to 2023 now, how do you think they will comply?
No, I think INEC did something which I think will make it necessary for parties to comply, because they appointed external auditors.
Because then there was no electoral law to back them?
Perhaps, I don't know, but I know that an auditor came to our office and he worked with us until the whole thing was completed and sent to INEC. So I think, and I'm sure it happens with all other parties. So in a situation where the party does not comply, then the law has spelled out what INEC can do in that respect. But just a few weeks ago, I think INEC did that.
Well, we have in our studio, he has just joined us. I introduced him earlier. Chukwudi Chukwujeku is the legal practitioner. He's a legal practitioner. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. You've been listening to the conversation.
Good morning to you all, and welcome viewers.
So what's your take on the guidelines by INEC that was released last week? And how can it impact the electioneering processes?
No, I think that was purely in compliance with the provisions of the law. particularly the Electoral Act of 2022 as amended, which made ample provisions that such things must be published within a particular period of time, particularly within 150 days to the election, commencing from the date of the announcement of the election, and then in preparations for the conduct of the elections within the country. It is also part of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that INEC would make such regulations and guidelines with a view to ensuring peaceful conduct of election within the country. So I think the publication, the release of the guidelines was in tandem with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electoral Act. And also, it will also guide the political parties in ensuring that all their activities are within the ambit of the law. So I think it's a good development to that effect. And if political parties and the candidates would adhere strictly to it, it will make a good impact to the society. I must say that these guidelines and the regulations, not only that it is backed up by law, it also provides sanctions which, upon its contraventions, renders a party liable to be punished upon conviction. The problem in Nigeria is that most times we do not move to the extent of enforceabilities of the guidelines and trying to ensure that any party who willfully contravenes the provisions of the guidelines and the Electoral Act be punished by law. So that is the major area which calls the attentions of the entire Nigerians to ask questions. Why are these guidelines not strictly complied with? And why are the people who appear to have willfully breached the content not punished according to the law?
All right, thank you very much, Chukudi. But Cynthia, let's return to the issues around political campaigns, more particularly the practical issues. We're talking about the length of notice required to be given to the security agencies as well as to INEC itself. Engineer Yabagi has already expressed his views on that. But we also know that the guidelines cover venue and time. And again, Engineer Yabagi has also drawn attention to the fact that, yes, there are places specifically excluded from campaigns, but that others are not excluded. And therefore, he finds it worrisome. What's your reaction?
Yeah, I do agree with engineer to on different points he made. Because I think I'd highlighted that earlier around the law provides this framework, and the guidelines rather provides this framework on how campaigns will be held, and provides limitations on where, venues, and issues around time. One, I would look at it from different. One, the part on time, the part around venue, but also the parts around state influence. And I'll make reference to some observations we've gotten. Young Africa's watching the vote. We're currently observing campaigns in different states, and we're beginning to see issues, of findings that contradicts these guidelines that we have, and even the Electoral Act. The first around the time frame. I do understand the importance of giving INEC the notice on when these campaigns will be held, and just so that INEC has that oversight responsibility by law to monitor political party activities, which includes campaigns. So INEC ought to actually also deploy its officials to the venues where it's held, and it needs that information to be able to deploy efficiently. Security is also important because you need to ensure it is done peacefully and no one's life is put at risk in the process of campaigns. But beyond that is also the fact that you need to ensure that every political party, I think the whole intention is that parties have an equal opportunity to conduct their campaigns, which is why if there is a conflict, they have to come and resolve that conflict. But why I wanted to start on this point is we are beginning to see incidents or reports from respective states where respective governors are now creating additional rules that are not in compliance with the Electoral Act and even with the guidelines. So we had reports on restrictions from states like Ebonyi, even Rivers, Kano, Lagos, where opposing candidates or political parties are struggling to even conduct their campaigns. And that is also a call on the Electoral Commission that as the oversight institution, the umpire, you have a role to begin to call out on states where there are undue restrictions to party campaigns by other political parties who have an equal right to contest. That is why once an issue is given to INEC, INEC ought to say these are the requirements. No state governor is supposed to be making rules around campaigns now because they are not INEC. That's one rule. The other parts around the use of public institutions. The guideline provides that public offices cannot be used, right? It doesn't mean that public spaces cannot be used. It's clear on public offices, right? They also talked around religious institutions. Now, I think it's important we also separate political campaigns and voter education campaigns, because why the idea around religious institutions is because this is a secular country, and there is that tendency that when we start having religious institutions adopt or promote candidates within those institutions, it also limits the freedom of faith, belief, and religion, right? Because within a particular religious belief or within a faith, you could have people with opposing ideas or different candidates or parties that they support. But if you start having churches or mosques or places of worship impose on their followers a candidate or party, you're limiting their freedom, the freedom of members to choose, which is why there is a need to regulate how campaigns are done within those spaces. But it doesn't mean that general conversations around electoral education cannot be held there. But the most one part an engineer mentioned it is how we see the level of impunity with even the presidents, the governors, who we know are using state resources to go about to campaign. We've seen this happening clear in the media. Be it the transportation means, be it the facilities that are being used, government houses being used for these campaigns, resources being used. And it's important our leaders understand that we need that clarity between campaign funding, where you get your resources to fund your campaign, and the use of state resources. We are beginning to even see social interventions coming up around this period, that if a government was serious, social interventions would be ongoing from the beginning of your tenure in office. But now we're beginning to see such social, gift items given in the name of is government intervention to ameliorate poverty within the community. But we already know this is state funds used to project a particular party or candidate. What this does is it creates an unequal playing field for other parties who do not have access to state resources. And that is not fair competition. The idea of election is that every side can compete equally and engage equally to canvass for votes. And then the other thing we're beginning to see, the guideline provides that use of media houses and use of promoting your campaign materials is a right for different parties done within a particular requirement, right? But we're also seeing restrictions at some state levels where state TV, state radio are not giving access to parties that are in opposition to leverage to promote their campaigns at those state levels. In fact, in one particular state, we've gotten reports from Lagos in particular, some candidates are struggling to even have their posters in some locations. That in itself is an illegality, because the idea of an election is that media houses are made available for every party to promote their ideas and their ideologies or their manifesto through adverts on the media platforms, regardless whether it is a private owned media or a government or state owned media. Same also in posting of posters, right? It is a requirement. But now we're beginning to see those restrictions that are not in the guidelines. People are asked to pay millions to use facilities for campaigns. What about parties, the smaller parties who just want to canvass for votes for their candidates running for other houses, maybe not even presidential elections, right? For the state assemblies and what have you. But these sorts of imposition, these sorts of restriction makes competition unequal, and it is against the democratic ethos of our country and even our constitution.
How can this narrative be changed?
This is where INEC comes in. Now, INEC, beyond issuing guidelines, cannot sit back and fold its arms. INEC has that power as an oversight institution and an umpire to call out state governors or states that are imposing this restriction on campaigns that are not provided for within the law. And we need to start seeing INEC speak up. Right? I know INEC will say, oh, we have a lot of things doing, but no. There is a reason you have that responsibility and that mandate, right? There's a reason you are the umpire. We need to have INEC begin to make those, especially as reports come in. These reports are not alien. A lot of these reports are in the media spaces already. We need to start seeing INEC speak and begin to, for parties that are causing this restriction, they need to actually be sanctioned, because you do not have the power to impose restrictions on opposition within a state where the law does not provide for those restrictions.
Excuse me, sorry. I was just wondering, Juma, we had a discussion on Good Morning Nigeria when there were rampant reports of the willful destruction of the campaign materials, posters, and billboards of some candidates and political parties. There was an incident in one of the states where a thug was reported to have been attempting to tear down the billboard of a particular candidate and political party, and he got electrocuted. So we had a conversation around that. But I want to bring in Engineer Yabagi again as chairman of IPAC. Are these matters that IPAC has considered and made representation? I do know that on the day we had this conversation, we also had the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria as part of it. And some have tended to make a distinction between political campaigns, core political campaigns versus signage responsibility of the respective states. That is to say, signage is a business, not of INEC, for instance. Signage like your billboards and so on and so forth. We also had the FCT part of the conversation here. But let's begin to break it down so that we can have this level playing field. As the field is now, even neither Messi nor Ronaldo can score.
Well, that's why I want to align myself with what Cynthia has said, that it's not enough for INEC to just issue out, these guidelines. It's also enforcement is very important. And the enforcement that matters to politicians is when you said your election may be questioned, if you do 1, 2, 3. But if it's a matter of money, they can always, give the money. And in most cases, what you find is even those who have too much money, because they have access to the treasury, they don't care how much money you want to levy them. So I think we must also understand the fact that we are playing a multi-party democracy in this country. That's what the Constitution has provided for. So we cannot afford a situation where people will stifle the space to the extent that we become effectively a one-party state, because that's what we're graduating to. If care is not taken, all these things that governors are doing, presidents are doing, and things like that, if they are not checked, end of the day, you find yourselves in a one-party state. They have hijacked the local government, structure. Even the elections they are effectively organized crime, because nobody wins. It's only one party that always wins. So, and then you now come to the state level. You now manipulate, the resources available to you, and they even come out in a manner that will tell you that you don't belong. We don't want to see you here, as if this is not your country, as if you didn't get the go ahead from the government regulatory agency that says, okay, you are now qualified to campaign, and you want to campaign, and somebody who came to that office also by virtue of the same freedom that you are now you are being denied, and nobody says anything. So I think all of us, including the electors, should begin to really hold the power to account, that we can't tolerate this, because it's not in the interest of the country. Government is there for how many years? The nation should be there. We are all trying to build this nation, not to build governments per se. So I think It is the duty of INEC and duty of other security agencies to rise to the occasion and see that we nip this in the bud. IPAC, you say, what are we doing? We've when these guidelines were coming out, we had to get INEC to give us the copy, so that we can make inputs. They never came back to us whether they have what to put there or not. So, but in any case, tomorrow, for instance, IPAC, we are having 20 political party summit, which is annual, and it's going to discuss some of these things. We have, it's going to take place under the chairmanship of the former head of state, General Abubakar, and governors are coming. Keynote address will be given by Ayos Payo. I'm the former Senate President, Secretary to the Government. So that is happening at Barcelona Hotel tomorrow. It's going to start. It's a 2-day event that we are having. Yaga is also part of it. They are also coming in. We have sessions that are going to discuss some of these things we are talking about. So we can put things in perspective and ensure that we do not lose this hard-earned democracy.
It often turns out, Engineer Yaba, again, you're familiar with this, and I'm sure Yaga is also familiar with this. When some of these crucial summits or meetings are called or are being held, some of the bigger political parties are usually absent.
Well, we'll see how it's going to happen because, like I said, when people like Jarab Salami is coming, governors are coming, what you said, I'm not saying it may not happen, but they are supposed to be part and parcel of this. In fact, it's been organized by
INEC
NIPS.
going to be part of the conversation?
INEC, yes, exactly. By NIPS, that is the Kuru, in collaboration with the European Union. They are the one funding most of these things. So the international committee is also keen in. The strategic policy making body in the country, which is NIPS, is also keen in. You have former head statesmen, who are also keen in. So who else do you want to be there for you to know that this is very important?
Indeed.
So,
experts are also saying that INEC cannot do it alone.
Yes.
Tracing finances, tracing donations from international donors and all that. So what kind of synergy do they have with agencies that have the mandate to do that?
Well, that's what I don't know, but I know that unfortunately for us, what you have is that this power of incumbency must be interrogated. If we want democracy to take root and succeed, in climes like Nigeria, developing countries, because the agencies you are talking about, these agencies are appointed by the same government. You want to talk about NIA, the intelligence,
EFCC,
or you want to talk about DSS, or you want to talk about EFCC, or you want to talk about even the INEC itself. It's appointed by the government. So there is a huge, gap between democracy, in the manner that it should be, and what we are practicing here. So we need to revisit our laws. We need to really go into the foundation. The fundamentals must be addressed effectively. You don't find some of these things happening in the so-called developed countries. They don't allow, even judges are not appointed. Some of them have to go for election before they are allowed to preside over certain
in developed countries.
Yes, developed countries. So Nigeria is we are number one on the continent of Africa. We're supposed to be developed. In fact, we have all the developing elements that you want to talk about. What we don't have is just the human
political will and the mindset.
Yes, and the mindset.
Okay, let's bring in Chukudi.
Yeah,
let's have your take on
Yes, Chukudi, I was just wondering, against the backdrop of some of the occurrences that we have seen and to which both Cynthia and Engineer Yusuf Sane have spoken about, how can we then utilize the instrumentality of the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the guidelines just issued to ensure an equal competition?
See, the law has made ample provisions for all this. And then that is why from the basis of the appointment to the basis of enforceabilities of these things are all having their separate enabling laws. Let me say this. There is no provision of the law that makes clear descriptions of offense without the manners of enforcing that particular offense. That is why agencies are created to assist the government or any other establishment or institution towards the enforcement of that particular ideology. Let's take, for instance, from what the contributor has said, sometimes those things are in black and white, but how to ensure that people are on the known of the content of the black and white is what we are lacking. That is why INEC cannot on their own say, we have published this is the provisions. There is a need to organize a sensitive positions with a view to conveying their ideas to the people. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And no one can say, because we are not aware that this thing is in black and white, we can continue to contravene them. So what the community, what the society will do is that the creations of the institutions will enable them to sensitize people on the implications of not adhering strictly to the provisions of the law. The EFCC will be there, the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, that is EFCC, and police, the DSS, and all these things. But it takes one to make adequate report to that effect. When you see something, you say something. It is not about...
I'm sorry, Chukwudi. You see, I understand the point you are raising, and I'm sure our viewers get that. The clear and present issue we are faced with is as follows. There are guidelines, for instance, that guarantee an equal opportunity and equal chance for all contestants in an election.
Yes.
But we are now seeing, at the subnational level, for instance, the intrusion or utilization of state power to frustrate the enforcement or obedience to the guidelines issued by the electoral umpire. What should be done?
The persons who are affected should lay appropriate complaint to the Independent National Electoral Commission on their own enforceability status, because it is only when they have complained. Assuming from what my sister said here, she made clearly that in some states there are people who are prevented from having their billboards, having their posters posted in strategic areas. Some were not even given the opportunities, the equal opportunities in the media. And the law has said this, that where a person who is contesting or a political party, it's not given an equal opportunity, that the media house or any person employed by the media who assisted in ensuring or perpetuation of such particular offense, that person will be punished. Now, it is for the person who has been deprived to make appropriate complaint to the appropriate authorities. This is my right, and I want to ensure that my rights are fully conferred to me. But at this level, I was denied. At this place, I was denied. And then INEC would have to take it up from that dimension to reach to that particular media, reach to that particular state, reach to that particular government, that you have contravened these provisions. It is in the guidelines. Everybody has seen it. Any participant, any stakeholder has the copies of this guideline. If it is not in hard copy, it is in soft copy. And everybody is deemed to have been in possession of same. Now, if such guidelines are not enforced, the INEC, who have issued same, will take the appropriate steps. It is not about championing. Like I have had the opportunity of seeing people who were not granted the opportunity of using the state-owned stations, media houses, in advertising or bringing forth their manifestos and other, because they are in opposition or they are not considered as important political parties in that state. In such occasion, it is for the spokesperson or the political party's agency for such purpose to communicate to the INEC. This is what happened to me, and such steps will be taken in order to ensure that such a thing never occurred anymore.
Okay. Chukwudi, you've raised some pertinent questions which I think will be addressed when we come back from this break. Don't go away. Do stay.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental
to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and Special Tactical Squads, through digitalization of emergency contacts via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the tap of a button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Our three guests are still with us here in the studios, and we're having a conversation around the issues on the guidelines for political campaigns and campaign financing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's drill into the issue around campaign financing. There are many matters about submission of audited accounts 6 months after an election. But one aspect, I remember Cynthia, when we were talking about this, I said, look, that's an interesting, if not dangerous dimension, that the guidelines appear to permit a certain threshold of foreign donations, provided a report is made. In some jurisdictions, that is a no-no, because then you open up the election to undue influence. People could use all kinds of mechanisms, crowdfunding, and so on and so forth. And it could be anybody. It could be terrorists. It could be drug barons who seek to influence the outcome of an election in a particular jurisdiction. Why should we, in the first instance, even permit foreign donations for our elections? And foreign donations to parties and to candidates for our elections?
Well, generally, it's there's a restriction on foreign donations actually. However, there are some exceptions to that. So because the whole idea for us is the idea of sovereignty, is one of the guiding philosophy behind limitations on foreign donations to campaigns and candidates. If you go to the US, you also have that level of restriction, right? And our system is almost tailored after that of the US. However, there are certain limitations, or rather exceptions, to the general rules. So, for instance, Nigerians, we have Nigerians in diaspora. You have Nigerians who come back to vote. They are registered voters. Some people came back to register, came back to collect their PVCs, they go back. So there are instances where you have Nigerians who live in diaspora and may be seen as earning in foreign currencies, but it doesn't mean that they can't also express themselves through support of the candidate, which is why there's that exception. There are some of those exceptions on which is why disclosure is key for that. However, there was something engineer talked about around the effectiveness of institutions. And I remember in October, we had a meeting in the US and we met with the chair of the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, which regulates campaign finance for the US. And one question was asked, how do you ensure there is no foreign interference? And he says that is not his responsibility, that there are institutions whose role are to track inflow and outflow, how cash comes in. And once they flag any, they pick it up. That the regulation on campaign finance is not a one institution responsibility. It's a responsibility for respective institutions that regulate different aspects of financial inflow and outflow, or even issues around economic and financial regulation. So it's a multi-stakeholder approach. And that is where we have a challenge here. The fact that in Nigeria, we have institutions that are sleeping on their responsibilities. And we think elections, when it comes to campaign finance, is just an INEC responsibility. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, for instance, has an important role to play. You have access, you can reach out to any bank to know how is funding coming, where do we have funds that are economic, that are financial, inflow from financial crimes. We have an institution with this responsibility, with a yearly budget. We have the is it NI? What is it? What is it called? NFIU. We have respective institutions with these powers, right? What we are seeing is that institutions are complicit and they do not even understand that it's not an INEC issue alone. That when it comes to foreign funds coming in, there is a reason why we need to have those issues, so that once we have questionable funds coming in, be it from terrorist organizations or even from drug lords or any other, they have from trafficking and profits from trafficking, whatever it is, that those institutions are flagging it and holding people to account to that. We also have institutions that ensures that when it comes to within the country, how monies move and exchange hands, that they are holding people to account. But we just have institutions with big names, big portfolios, big budget, sleeping on their duties, doing nothing.
And there are arguments that says this money, most of this money doesn't go through the bank.
Well, I know we always have this question around, we have a lot of cash transactions, but whether we like it or not, there's still a large percentage that goes through the institutions that exist. We have a lot of transfers ongoing at the moment. So even bringing foreign money from outside the country, you must go through, it's not, because when you're coming to the country, at least if you travel, you declare how much funds you have. There's a reason why you're scanned, because if you're moving with high source of or high amounts of money in foreign currencies, all those scannings are supposed to detect that, which is why we expect that a lot of foreign inflows, a lot of monies that come out from our outside our borders, come in through mostly electronic transfers or through other means, which can be tracked. There's a reason why we have EFCC with cases that can track individuals who they've been on their watch list for years, and sometimes there is something that triggers or puts it on their path, and they can on their radar, and they can track it.
What we have heard, because I recall a couple of weeks ago while we were discussing the redesign of the Naira and the fact that cash graves were emerging in different parts of the country and rotting Naira notes were being exhumed. The director of operations of EFCC was one of our guests on Good Morning Nigeria. And he did say that the EFCC, of course, will be keeping an eye on transactions at this material time. One, lodgements, and then also, of course, withdrawals, which means we to go through the financial system, not just waiting for see and buy on the election day, which is actually the retail end of it. I know your concern has to do with the wholesale end of monetization of our electioneering.
I wanted to also add something. You know, sometimes when I hear some excuses from EFCC, it just baffles me, right? We've had instances where you see individuals moving with bullion vans. Monies in Ghana must go to campaign venues. We see this reported.
But these are supposed to be launch packs.
No, because we cannot have, if an average citizen can tell you, yes, money is moved in this van from this location, and it's not a bank, it's not the CBN moving cash from one location to the other. You cannot tell me that EFCC can sit back and say, I do not know that. Where is you're supposed to go and say, why are you moving with this amount of cash at this period from this place to this place? So we also need our institutions to begin to be responsible and be accountable to the people. These things are glaring. If you get a report, investigate it. We should not have a situation where people are moving about with huge sums of monies and the FCC is waiting for just the transactions that happen within the banks. That means they are not even planning for our local context, because you operate within a context, meaning that you cannot limit yourself to just withdrawals or lodgements at the banks. You also have agents deployed to see how monies move from locations to locations. And when you see huge sums of money, ask people questions. Why are you moving around with this huge sum of monies at campaign grounds? Is this not above a limit? So we also need institutions to start. Let's call a spade, right? Let's stop pretending like we don't know the reality, like it don't exist within our context. If an average citizen can tell you that money moved in this car to this place, you cannot tell me that EFCC will say, I'm waiting to see movement within the bank. Then they are lying. Even POS, do you know that some POS you can withdraw as high as 800, 1 million? At a point, you can do that with just this POS. How are we tracking how these merchants are issuing that POS, and who holds these people accountable? So there are new ways which monies are exchanging hands, and there are new ways to track that. We need institutions that are alive and awake to their responsibilities.
There are new ways also to beat the system.
Yes.
Well, the system has to be a step or several steps ahead
yes,
of the scofflaws. Engineer Yabagi, what's your take on this with respect to the threshold on campaign financing, donations by individuals, and particularly also what Cynthia has explained, foreign donations, whether you're diaspora or otherwise? I mean, a diasporan could be a third-party conduit for all kinds of things. What are your thoughts on this, and should we... I don't know. Sometimes because we hear all kinds of stories. Kingsley donated a private jet for me to campaign. If you are using that jet, Cynthia, why are you laughing? Because I said I donated a private jet. Because I said I donated a private jet. I donated a private jet for you to campaign. Now, if you were to log the flight hours of that private jet, and then you say, look, a 1 hour flight on a private jet, a 2 hour flight on a private jet, it sits on the tarmac, what is the monetary value? Are we conscious of this, or we're just saying, no, I donated a jet for your use. After the campaigns, return my jet to me. I have a big jet, by the way, so let's...
Well, I don't know, Kingsley, don't let us forget the fact that even this election, these campaigns that we have seen, most of the so-called frontline candidates have to visit the foreign countries we are talking about to be endorsed.
They have been visiting, actually.
Yeah, so, which means we are not yet truly independent in our country. Because it's one thing to go to abroad for campaigns. It's another thing to begin to now, as some of the things we hear, is that the influence through money, it's one of the attractions why some of these people go abroad, to see that they attract some of these things. I will say that if you look at our situation, Nigeria, where we are today, you see, we look at Nigeria from the perspective of the ethnicity. It's a case of people are not really contesting as Nigerians. You must accept that, because that's the truth. That's what is happening today as we speak today. You have the Southeast, with Peter Obi. You have the Yorubas with Ashwaju. You have Northerners with Atiku. So it's not about Nigeria. It's about the ethnicity. Which ethnicity will now, beat the other ones and then seize the power and then grow his own domain or his ethnicity, because that's what we have seen.
No, but
the point is that
some of the supporters of the candidates you have named will disagree with you, because they claim that they have broad-based support across the different parts of the country.
Broad-based support, but we have the utterances. I'm building for the utterances of the candidates themselves. One says don't vote for anybody because I'm a northerner. One says it's our turn, Yoruba turn. One says, sure, take back your country, and I'm from this place. We have not been given a chance to rule this country. These are facts. Just like you are saying, we shouldn't overlook some of these things. They are realities, and there are things that are militating against all the things about democracy that we are talking about here. So, because these people that you have in some of the institutions we are talking about are also from this ethnicity, and they want for state preservation. Some of them want to perpetuate themselves in their offices where they are. So the issue of money moving around, somebody not say anything, who should say something, we have to go to the fundamentals, otherwise we'll get it wrong, in how to solve some of these problems we're talking about. And this is why, not because I'm campaigning, I don't represent any of those sentiments. That's why we're asking Nigerians to vote for me.
You're not campaigning here.
No, I'm not campaigning.
You're not campaigning here.
I'm not campaigning, and that's why our party.
There's restriction on campaign according to the guidelines.
Good Morning Nigeria
Network.
But you are speaking,
NTA Good Morning Nigeria.
No, you are
There's restriction on campaign. We are the one issuing the guideline. You are the one issuing the guideline now.
No, you are guideline. I understand. You are speaking. You are speaking to issues that must address the things I'm talking about. We must look away from where we are coming from. It's a reality. If we don't, and that's why Action Democratic Party, ours is rule of law. That's what we want to bring about, rule of law. All the things we are talking about is because rule of law has not been used as a mantra for the governance in this country. So what am I saying? Yes, monies are moving around. The issue on the campaign financing, the fact that you can't donate more than 50 million is also there. But the question you ask yourself is, like you said, if Kingsley decides to give the jet that he said he has.
His jet.
His jet, yes. How many do you have? Because I'll need one too.
Okay, so what I will do, let me quickly put a call to my manufacturer so that they can.
These are serious things that are really, working against the guidelines given even by the Electoral Act itself. And then, I don't know whether you have looked at that electoral, the 2022. Section 89, I think it's
88.
No, 88 lists give the limit.
Then
89 is talking about the expenses, limits of expenses by political parties. It says that the only time you can say what the political party has spent is when the commission sits down with me and I tell them that no, this money is what it's used for. You know, so and I can give reasons for whatever I spend in any case. So what am I saying? There is a lacuna there that I may spend billions, and it doesn't put a limit as to how many places can I go to get the money.
But let's also be fair. I know you want to learn. Let's also be fair. We are making some progress. I mean, we recall in the course of this Fourth Republic, against the rules in Kama at the time, Kama 1990 before it became Kama 2020, companies and their chieftains were purporting to be raising funds for a political party in Nigeria. We haven't seen that, and I doubt if anyone is going to attempt that this time around. True? We're making progress.
We're making progress. Cynthia, come
on. Yeah. Well, and this, on the surface, you can say we're making progress.
We're making progress.
You see, so long this economy is public sector driven, we're going to have this problem because even the chieftains of the banks we're talking about, their biggest customers is the government. So you find that, we must begin to address some of these fundamentals. We must, otherwise we can never get it right. Somebody was lamenting here, so what do we do? So what we do, there are very definite actions that we must take as a nation, to do this. And that's why I like your program, because the electorates gets to, be educated on what to do. And the education is that we can't be doing the same thing the same way and expect different results. If we keep voting for those we are voting for, we can't get different results. Other countries that have made it, they took a decision, at a point in the life of their nation, and then they now take it in the right direction. The direction we are today, we all see it. We are seeing it. It's happening. It's not that. So what I'm saying is that INEC, yes, must. I know INEC for sure wants to deliver a very successful election because they have. They are working. I mean, Mahmoud cannot afford to fail. It's his last outing. So he can't afford to fail, and he has Jega that he wants to probably emulate or even surpass what Jega did. So when it comes to INEC, I don't have any fears. But it's not only INEC. You have the lead agencies, security agencies that are in this exercise we're talking about.
Does it make it any easier for the institutions of state to perform their assigned roles in the absence of, say, an incumbent being a candidate in the elections? Chukudi.
It doesn't really. I don't think it will for anything in that dimension to happen. Why do I say so? It is sometimes these laws are already written. I always come by virtue of the provisions of the law. Section 225 of 1999 Constitution makes ample provisions on the restrictions placed against foreign interventions on this particular, on elections, particularly on the issue of funding. Yes, my sister had said that there are limited exceptions, but that particular law did not create the exception. And any law which is creating an exception other than the provisions of the Constitution, to that extent, is null and void. It doesn't support the law because Section 225, subsection 3, clearly says that it cannot happen. And where such a thing happens, it must be forfeited. That is the law. And that was
is that a possibility in Nigeria to forfeit?
The possibility is also re-emphasized on Section 85 of the Electoral Act. The point where you are is where the state actors are themselves beneficiaries to such foreign interventions. What will the state do? That is where these institutions created by the law to assist in the preventions of such crime will come in. There is no way you can say that you do not know. That is why also, let me say before I forget, that such things must be reported. Such interventions or annual report, the election expenses or expenditures must be submitted to the INEC 6 months, within 6 months after the election. That is to ensure that these things are checkmated. And take it, it is not limitless to you for you to contribute to any election. There is an amount for which an individual can contribute and an amount for which an institution can contribute. None of them will exceed 50 million naira. And when you are doing election expenses, the law also provides that with respect to presidential, you cannot spend more than 5 billion. With respect to governorship, you cannot spend more than 1 billion. And when these expenses are calculated, maybe money or money what? Just like Kinsley said, that we don't even take in considerations those attitudes, those favors that are likely to culminate into monetary expenses if by any calculations they can be severed.
Okay, Chukwudi Chukwejuku is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for your thoughts and insight into the conversation. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Abaji Yusuf Sani is the IPAC National Chairman and also the presidential candidate of the ADP. Thank you so much for your insight. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, there's something
yes.
that the legal man said, which just 1 minute.
Yes.
He says there's no limit to how much.
30 seconds.
5 billion. This is for the candidate. 5 billion presidential. But it does not put any limit as to what the party can spend.
Yes.
There's no limit for the party. So the party, once somebody becomes a candidate, you are the property of the party.
Yes.
So the party can spend trillions. Yes, the party can spend trillions.
The party, it's limitless.
It's limitless. That's the point I want to make.
Okay, thank you so much for saying that. And also, we're joined in the conversation by Cynthia Mbamalu. She's Director Program Yaga Africa. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Well, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. Join us tomorrow for another edition. I am Jummai Yusuf.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. Say, do have a nice day.